If you're using NAT gateways in your current architecture, you might be able to save a minimum $10 per month per AZ just by switching to VPC endpoints. Here's how. Okay, so before even discussing how to create VPC endpoints, it's important to understand why they're even important in the first place. So here I've got a setup where I've got my tasks within my private subnet and I want to access S3 and ECR to kind of pull Docker images as well as push them. I'll get into why that is a bit later, but the main thing is that here you're having to route through the route table into the NAT gateway, and through the NAT gateway you're able to access it to the internet gateway using its own route table. And then finally, if you want to actually access all these services, S3, ECR, or CloudWatch, if you want to monitor your containers, then it has to be done through the internet. There's no other way because you're accessing the public endpoints through the internet gateway. And so I must traverse the internet, and this presents a massive problem because it's less secure because it's left the AWS cloud, and also it's an additional hop which reduces latency, and also it presents a lot more cost. By using NAT gateways, you are actually spending about $32 per month per AZ, and in this setup, by using 2 AZs, I'm effectively doubling my cost. This becomes $64 per month just from using NAT gateways, so that my instances within my Fargate task can actually access the internet and those services that I spoke about. So let's look at an alternative, the VPC endpoints. This is a lot simpler. You don't need to use route tables. My public subnets only have my load balancer that was originally in there, but there's no NAT gateways that I'm using. I'm using VPC endpoints. All I have to do is configure the actual security group for it and define the VPC API endpoints for each of the services. So S3, ECR, ECR actually contains 2. There's also Docker one that I'll get into, and as well as CloudWatch. So by connecting up the tasks to VPC endpoints, I can actually access the services within the cloud. So you can see it's all contained within the AWS cloud. None of it leaves to the internet. So there's no longer that hop. So you can be rest assured that all your AWS services are kept private. Therefore, it presents an additional layer of security. And also, it's much cheaper. It's about $7 per month, once more, per AZ for each of the APIs you want to access. So there are kind of 4 services because this counts as 2. So if you do the maths, it actually comes out to a bit cheaper. So S3 is actually free. You can configure it as a gateway endpoint instead. So that can be free. 2 of these, since ECR counts as 2, and then 1 of these, that's total 3. 3 times $7 each, that comes to $21 per month. That's about $10 less per AZ than the $32 solution presented by NAT Gateways. And of course, doubling that, that is about a $20 per month, comparing that to the NAT Gateway solution. Okay, so before we even go into creating the endpoints, firstly, we need to do a bit of setup. So on the VPC itself, you need to go into settings. So let's edit the VPC settings. And let's check that enable DNS resolution and enable DNS host names are both enabled. Because in order to create our endpoints, specifically our VPC endpoints later on, we need to ensure that we enable DNS host names and DNS resolution because they use private DNS. So that's our prerequisite. Now that we've done that, we can then go on to the next step of the setup. That is creating the security group for each of our endpoints. So let's go into security groups and get creating. So I'm just going to name this security group VPC endpoint security group. Just shorthand SG. And yeah, this allows HTTPS traffic from our private subnet. Now, the VPC we select is of course the one we're using. And for our inbound rule, we want to make sure that we're enabling HTTPS. So let's go down. There we go, HTTPS 443. Our source is going to be custom, and for custom, we're going to specify our VPC. So our VPC is set at 10.0.0.0/16. That's our CIDR block. So enable anywhere within our VPC. For our outbound rules, we can leave as is, no problem. And then we can click to create the security group. So that's the setup, by the way. Now let's get to creating our actual endpoints. So let's go onto endpoints under private link and lattice, create our endpoint, and for the first one, we're just going to do our S3 gateway endpoint. Remember that was a free service, but if you want it to be free, you have to select the correct one. So let's go into here. Actually, we don't need to search up fully. We just search up S3, and you can see there's a whole bunch that's come up. So we're in EU West, so it's these ones, but our specific one is just .s3. That gives us gateway or interface. We want to select the gateway type. That's the free one, so let's use that. And our VPC is our VPC. Our route tables, we want to make sure we apply it to our private route tables because it's our private instances in our private subnet that will be accessing those. Finally, there is one other setting. No, there is no other settings because it's a gateway. You create the endpoint. Let's create our next one. Go into ECR API endpoint. And here we want to go into ECR. Type that in. We've got three options. So we're just going to create our API endpoint for now. So that's this one. Select our VPC once more. And this was saying that for this one, we want to make sure it's enabled. Enable private DNS name. That associates a private hosted zone within the VPC. And it basically uses DNS to effectively serve traffic to your endpoint. Okay, so our AZs, you want to select both, and within each, you want to select the private subnet, not the public one. Finally, for our security group is our endpoint security group. And we create. Create our next one, the Docker endpoint. It's a lot easier now. I'll search. So yeah, same settings as before. Private. Just double check that. Yeah, private. Security group, same as before. Create. Okay, that's 3 out of 4. Last one. So this final one is for CloudWatch. This is recommended. However, if you have an alternative way, you can use that too. So yeah, CloudWatch is what you use to monitor the status of all your tasks, and is quite, I believe, important for ensuring that you know what's going on inside your containers. Sorry, we're going to type in logs for this. So it's logs, not stream logs. So it's just logs and same settings as before. Private, security group, done. Okay, that is all our gateway endpoints and API endpoints complete. So once that's provisioned, you're ready to go pretty much, and there is not much else to do apart from updating your ECS service. And that wraps up the tutorial on how to create VPC endpoints. If you like this video, please do give it a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And also, I'm also on other platforms, so we're talking LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. If you haven't done so, please do give me a follow there. I'll be posting it down in the comments. Other than that, have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video.